So this is the M48 Patton. This is going to be the next in the Patton line, and this is actually a rare example because this is a base model M48. So the neat thing is that there are actually not many of these that were made. One of the reasons is that it got very poor gas mileage. Many people nowadays probably consider 20 miles per gallon bad gas mileage. This did not get anywhere near that. It could go about 70 miles in total on a full tank of gas. In fact, they actually realized that we really need to do some changes to how we design tanks. And this is actually, the 48 Pattons are going to be the first tanks that get diesel engines in the United States Army. We're using gasoline up until this point. And the M48 Patton is going to be a very successful design, especially after they get the new diesel engines. They're going to be used by our allies. They're going to be used by the United States in Vietnam. And in fact, actually, we're going to upgrade some of them in the early 80s to have 105 millimeter guns, which are going to be the same as the Abrams and the M60s. So I'll actually point out something. I did mention earlier how we're really kind of going into the idea of using different geometry for creating the tank armor. So this is actually a perfect example of us doing that with a curved armor plate. This is known as cast armor. So it's going to be very resistant to shells. You can very easily mold it to whatever shape you want. But there is one thing to know about, is that actually the M48 is not the only tank that we designed to have this type of armor, this plate specifically. We actually designed it to be a lot like the M103 heavy tanks. So I did mention how we developed tanks that have those larger guns. The M103 is going to basically be what is supposed to long range slug it out with Soviet tanks. This is going to be more of for everything else. So this is what we would call a main battle tank. And we're also seeing with the Pattons a new philosophy emerging. We're going to eventually stop using light tanks. We're going to eventually stop using the heavy tanks. We're going to focus in on just one tank. It's really going to be derived from the medium tank line that started in World War II. So the 48 Patton also has 4-man crew. It's a little smaller than the 46 and the 47. It's going to have the driver in the front here of the tank, and you're going to have the commander, the loader, and the gunner all in the turret. Now the turret's also designed to be big enough that it can provide enough space for the crew inside in order to maneuver the shells around as well as do their jobs. And the turret ring is actually, in a sense, the determinant of how big the tank is. Perfect example, in World War II, we decided that all of our tanks that were going to be medium tanks and heavy tanks, a lot of them were going to have a 69-inch turret ring in diameter. So actually, we were able to take an M26 Pershing turret and put it onto an M4 Sherman hull for a prototype vehicle. It was never going to be sent overseas. They just wanted to see if they could do it. But that is actually what they were able to do. Another neat thing about the M48 is that it's designed to take advantage, again, of those shells that we're using and developing. It's going to be using HVAP, but at this point it's called Sabo. It's also going to be using heat shells. And we're also going to make it so that it's nice and heavy duty. For example, in Vietnam, they would actually use these for what were known as thunder runs. So the tracks are very well constructed, and the tank's very heavy. So it's perfect for setting off landmines at high speeds. So they would actually use the M48s and drive them down a road, two across, and they drive them at high speeds, so that ways the landmines that were potentially on the road would just explode behind them. A anti-vehicle mine is not really going to do much to a tank. You really need an anti-tank mine. If they have fears that there's going to be anti-tank mines, they're probably not going to do a thunder run. But the thunder runs were just meant to save a lot of time for the minesweepers, as well as just kind of do something a little effective and a little fun at the same time. But another neat thing about this vehicle is that we actually supply a lot of M48s to Germany, as well as a little secretly, we provide them to Israel. And Israel made great use of them during their wars against Syria and Egypt in the 60s and 70s. They were actually hitting tanks from a mile out with some of the M48s that we were providing them. So it's a very accurate system. It's the same philosophy as the M47, where we're designing it to be as long range as possible, as accurate as possible, and as well made as possible. So yeah, it's a good tank. And I'll actually point out one last thing. You can notice that this one has a nickname on it. Right here. This is Snoopy. So this is an example of tankers naming their tanks and sometimes giving a little character to go along with it.